Hi everyone, you're listening to NARA podcast, and this is Karolis Vyšniauskas. Today's episode is going to be in English, and we are going to talk about the city that NARA is based in, the city that I am based in as well. It's the city of Vilnius, a capital of Lithuania. I really hope that this episode will reach people who are new to the city and who want to make it their home. So here's the thing about Vilnius. It is changing all the time. And in recent years, it became a city for people who were looking for safety because they couldn't find it in their own homes. I'm talking, of course, about people from Ukraine who are being bombed by Russia's army. I'm talking about people from Belarus who came to Vilnius after the anti-Lukashenko protests were brutally cracked down in 2020. And there are people from all over the world who, at some point, chose Vilnius as their home. We have 3 guests in the studio today. We all are working in the fields of sound, music, and media. And if you are connected with these fields somehow, I hope this episode will be useful to you as well. The conversation that you're going to hear is a collaboration with the initiative called Vilnius Circle. This initiative unites international media and culture workers inside Vilnius. The music that you're hearing now is produced by Ira Hoisa, Ukrainian music producer and DJ. He's one of the speakers in the studio today. This episode has no connection with the municipality of Vilnius. Our thoughts are completely independent. We recorded the conversation on February 1st, 2024. Things might have changed by the time you're listening. Having all this in mind, let's go to the studio.
Hello, I'm Samantha. British but Vilnius based.
Hi, my name is Pavel. I'm Belarusian, but now riding a taxi here, I said that I'm Vilnietis.
Hi, my name is Ira. I came from Ukraine. I came to Vilnius after the full-scale war, and now I'm living here.
And a little bit of context of what we are doing here. So our circle here is, on one way, we are people who are very similar to each other. We all are connected with sound, with music. On the other hand, we came from different parts of the world and we have very different experiences. So why don't we let our listeners learn a little bit about yourselves? Who you are and how did you end up in how did we all end up here in the city of Vilnius? All right, Ira, why don't we start from you? You're originally from Chernihiv in Ukraine, correct? Mm-hmm. Please share a story with the listeners as much as you feel like you want to share.
Mm-hmm. So I came from Chernihiv. Came to Vilnius in May in 2022. I came to Vilnius as a DJ because I wanted to share Ukrainian music here, and I started to run my show, and that was my mission here, and I'm still doing it. I have found a job here, and I'm doing well being in Vilnius.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You mentioned the show. Can you tell more about that?
Yeah. After I came to Vilnius, I started to run a show on Palanga Street Radio. My idea was to play Ukrainian music there. And after a while, I started to run a show on Ukrainian radio, which is called Gasoline. And the idea was to play Lithuanian music there. So that was kind of cultural exchange between these two countries. And that's how I started to do something in Vilnius.
Mm. And do I understand correctly that you came here because you cannot really live properly in your home in Chernihiv because of Russia's war against Ukraine? Or what was the reason?
Chernihiv was bombed at the beginning of invasion, We were hiding in basements. We didn't have enough food, and the life was just not normal. I came to realize myself as an artist here, and Vilnius was very welcoming, and it gave me a chance to do that.
I imagine you coming in May, like the full-scale war started in February 2022. So you coming in May as a Ukrainian, having in mind the big support that Lithuanians showed to Ukrainian people, was that like helpful in how you were treated here?
I don't know. In Lithuania, people are really aware about what is going on. I feel that support and help from people, and I feel comfortable here because I'm not afraid that I will meet some people, who are pro-Russians or something like that. Of course, there are some people because they are everywhere, but I don't feel it here a lot. And you can see also Ukrainian flags everywhere, so it's nice to be here.
And you mentioned you found a job here. It's also connected with Ukrainian community in Vilnius.
I work at school, which was opened after the invasion. Originally, it was planned to be like a Kharkiv school, but now we have kids from all the parts of Ukraine. It's a private school in Vilnius.
Okay.
The Ukrainian kids.
How old are the kids?
We have like proper school. We have primary school, middle school, secondary school, and high school. So a lot of kids.
Thank you for sharing that, Ira. Pavel, let's move to you. Ira said she arrived here in 2022. You've been here for a little bit longer, correct?
Yeah, I came here in 2008 to study, like straight after the school. I myself from the city of Baranavichy, from Belarus. So for me, Vilnius was why I picked Vilnius at the time, because there was no that particular program to study in Belarus. It was Visual and Cultural Studies in a European Humanities University. So for me, that was the peak of like the direction I'm interested in to study. And the city was different back then. And I think it was 2008 when Vilnius was the European capital of culture. So it was like booming with events at that time. So I spent 15 years here, and the most important thing is that those years were the most, years where your brain starts to work. I mean, these are your conscious years, because I came here when I was 17. And I feel like I grew up in Vilnius, in that thing. And now I feel that Vilnius is my hometown more than the Baranavichy, because I have no this is where my family is, but I have no connections to that city.
And I want to ask you the similar question I asked to Ira. I feel like in ideal world, it shouldn't be that your nationality kind of affects of how you are seen by people and how you're treated, but I think in reality it does affect. And I wonder, you as coming from Belarus, how did that affect your Vilnius experience? And of course, having in mind how it has changed, right? Since, for example, back in 2020, we had a massive support for protests in Belarus against against Lukashenko. Now there's another wave of like suspicious towards like Belarusians and seeing them as almost like collaborators with like Russians. And I wonder if you, just being as you said, you are firstly a Vilnietis, how does that sentiment, like how do you experience all this like influence of national identity?
You know, I feel, for me personally, I feel that my like identity is mixed. I can't say that I'm properly Belarusian and properly Lithuanian. This is somewhere in between because I share something from both cultures. I know Lithuanian culture and I know Lithuanian media scene, as well as I know Belarusian scene. So the attitude towards Belarusians was changing over time. I think in 2008, 10, it was like a little suspicious, but then it was, changing towards really welcoming. And in 2020, that was a massive support for the protest movement in Belarus. And now what I see is like more of a protective national agenda that is really important. And I can understand that because it's really hard to find resources to filter that many people to find who is the spy, because it's not very clear, and lots of people are fleeing. But what can I add to that is the attitude towards you is really different if you speak Lithuanian or not. Mm-hmm. Because when I start to speak Lithuanian, and then we switch to any other language, it's different attitude. Like people know that you put your time and put your, mind into learning the language, understanding the culture. And they grateful for that. And it's a good attitude towards you. But when like people come and speak Russian, I guess they sometimes encounter, this block that you're not welcome here.
I see. Thank you for sharing that. And Sam, moving to your situation, when the borders open up, like when Lithuania joined the EU, the UK was a place where a lot of people went to search for work, also to study. It was basically the movement of people went like one way, and you went the
other way.
The other way, and you are here. I want to hear more about your story.
Yeah. You grow up. I guess in the context I grew up working in the arts, you think that you have dreams of like living abroad and, moving away from island life into mainland Europe. And a lot of that, ends up thinking in places like that more obvious, such as Berlin or other kind of big cultural hubs. And then I never really thought about moving to the Baltics. And for many people in the UK, they really know nothing about this place in the world. But thinking back, I actually began to meet Lithuanians exactly for the reason you just said. There was one person I met who now lives back in Lithuania, and I see him regularly. My oldest friend, who I met in Brighton when I lived there studying. And this was 12 years ago or something. And then I met him, and then I met a whole community of Lithuanian people. So I had an awareness of this place in the world, filmmakers, etc. And then in 2020, obviously a very heightened time, the UK was about to Brexit from the EU, which still baffles me every day. And I encounter issues with not being able to I have to make a choice, I'm in the EU or I can't work in both countries. But, and there's something about that also strips your own identity as well as someone who's grown up with this sense of feeling very connected and being European. But yeah, I came here in 2020 because I had an art residency at Rupert. And I wanted to come here to connect with the culture that I'd been so fondly that's been so fondly spoken about to me, with these long-lasting friends. And I came here in obviously a very, very difficult time because then we entered a second lockdown. And so I was spending time in Lithuania and having to sort of have a bubble of people that I then got to know very closely, and most of them actually were connected to Palanga Street Radio because I'd started to work a lot with radio as a medium that allowed me to keep working creatively at a distance with people. Like, you could still produce radio and stories and create stories through music and narrative, and that kind of showed me the power of this medium. And I started to build project applications and things like this, and I started to realize how eager people were to make here. And I've been coming from a culture of oversaturation in London and constantly fighting to try and be something and realize ideas, but there's always kind of economic pressures, and especially with Brexit happening, like, there was a severance of possibilities to also work collaboratively on an international scale. So I really felt like my knowledge and experience was going to be a lot more valuable here, and to form partnerships and collaborations. And so I went for a permit. Roughly, that was what happened.
Well, I'm glad it happened. And that you're here.
I'm glad it happened.
And I'm thinking a lot about the identity of this city and how we all can, how we all participating in creating it. Because I spent earlier, I had a chance to study in New York, and in that city, it didn't really feel like I'm in America. It felt like I'm in New York, and because it felt like a place where no matter where you're from, you can come there and you do something and you instantly can feel welcome, because when everyone arrived there at some point, you arriving there, you also you are part of the bigger trend, basically. And I wonder how, if that can be, if situation in the city like Vilnius can be similar, because Europe in general is very based on national identities, and I wonder if, in my vision, Vilnius would be a city where people from different parts of the world can come and make it home. But there are factors, like, for example, Pavel, what you said, unless you actually started speaking Lithuanian with people, only then you felt that you were treated as, as equal in some sense, or not as a foreigner. And sometimes being seen as a foreigner can be a good thing as well, because it's not like people here don't want foreigners or don't like foreigners. But I wonder, is it possible not to feel a foreigner here? And I want to come back to you, Ira, how it was for you coming here and making this place your home. I don't know if I guess you're still in that process, but what factors helped you, and what we can learn from your story. In general, we as someone who lived here longer, how can we be more welcoming, I guess? How in your situation, what factors help you to become more like home in Vilnius?
First of all, there are people I'm surrounded with. They are my friends, and they are understanding why I came here. Of course, what would help me to be more at home is to learn Lithuanian language. So I'm struggling with it because language is really difficult. But so far I'm using English with young generation and broken Lithuanian with old generation. But language is a big part of it, to feel like you are at home, because I am honestly afraid to speak Russian to old generation when I cannot explain sometimes some things.
Where is that fear coming from?
Because it's clear, because of the war and because Lithuania supports Ukraine very much, and just Russian language is like a taboo here, like in many other countries.
Yeah, and maybe you don't want to be seen as Russian yourself.
Yeah, of course. Ukrainian language is your identity. You should speak and show that you are Ukrainian here, not Russian. Yeah, of course. It's about identity.
Mm-hmm. And how it was for you joining the DJ scene? Was it easy for you to be booked, to get gigs, to just kind of put your name on the map here?
Yeah, talking about cultural scene, I would say that I didn't have any like problems to be booked, because people replied me and probably wanted me to invite to play a gig at their clubs or venues or events. Yeah, I wouldn't say I had like some problems with it.
Do you think the fact you being Ukrainian could also help on your benefit? Because, I don't know, maybe people want to show support by inviting you as an Ukrainian artist?
Yeah, honestly, I felt there is a part of it that people are inviting me because they want to see a Ukrainian in their lineup, and also my goal was to play some of Ukrainian music. Yeah, I felt it.
Yeah. This question of language is very interesting, because following that example of New York, the question of language doesn't exist there. People kind of take English as the language where the main language that is being used. Though, of course, there are lots of other languages that are spoken like inside people's homes, but like when you're out of the city, it's like in university, most classes are in English, and that helps. So I feel like in Lithuanian, is the question of language kind of divides, like keeps these divisions between people, and what we can do about it. Is there anything to do about it? Because like Lithuanian identity is very much tied with Lithuanian language. If you ask Lithuanian people, like, what makes you Lithuanian? Language is like on top of that usually, and that's understandable. But on the other hand, I guess when I speak with my English-speaking friends, they say I don't really need to learn Lithuanian because everyone speaks with me in English. I would like to hear, Sam's, your experience. Do you feel that to feel more like home here, is language a factor? How it affects?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, and what I've kind of come back to Lithuania because there was a short period where I moved away, and actually around the beginning of the war, that was the time I came back, because I realized, how much this place felt like home when I left it. So I had to come back and really root myself here. And of course, with that, questions about the language have emerged, especially in terms of like your long-term stability of being here, because that is also a requirement. That in terms of residential status and all of these things, and not least the fact that my partner is Lithuanian, and it can be challenging talking to his family and all these other things. So in terms of feeling truly connected, I think I have a desire to learn it, but then on the other hand, everything I do is in English because it's the working, operating language, because so much of what I do is international. It's with collaboration partners from across all kinds of different countries in Europe. And it's, other examples where I've done projects outside of the region, outside of Vilnius, for example, Chernihiv and Chernihiv, and these much more rural or, I guess, places outside of the capital, which different communities exist and live there. And it does present a barrier where you can't feel truly understanding of the culture and maybe certain aspects of heritage and history, and that's unfortunate. And it's just a very hard language to learn. And and often people do just make the switch completely. But I would say on a weekly basis, I encounter situations that are challenging. Like even having experienced healthcare here as well, even in that context where you really want to make strong connections with the person you're speaking with, it can present challenges. So, yeah.
And does that make you feel, this language barrier, does that make you feel somehow, I don't know, alien in a way? Like, even though you work here, you do projects in Lithuania, your friends are Lithuanian, like, what does the language barrier, how does it affect you?
Yeah, I have gone through phases of, where it's been more of a problem with more bureaucratic processes, and it can be really anxiety inducing that there aren't English translations, because even if I were to begin the process, which I have been, of learning Lithuanian to get to that level of understanding to deal with certain processes that I have to legally to be here, some of that is not in English, and those translations aren't available, and it's in those instances where you start to feel like, what am I doing here? And it would be so much easier the other way. I also think there's a certain thing that I feel very conscious of when it comes to English, that if you begin to communicate with someone who, where their English is very broken, it can also just, that person can kind of just shut off because they get really anxious thinking, oh, but you're judging me, and there's seriously no judgment going on. Or I get very self-conscious that I'm walking into these spaces where I'm speaking fluent English, and I feel like people assume that I'm kind of expecting that everybody can speak English because, but I think this is just like a thing that there's a kind of stereotype that British people go around and just like expect every country speaks in English. So, yeah.
Pavel, it's kind of funny. Whenever I meet you, I know you speak Lithuanian like real well, but I still speak with you in English.
That's the habit.
Unless you start speaking to me in Lithuanian, then I reply to you in Lithuanian.
You speak quite fluent in Lithuanian, no?
What I think about that language issue is that this is what comes with immigration. Like, if you emigrate, most likely you will encounter new language, and that's the thing I was thinking about in 2009 when I was in the university, that it felt like lots of my friends back at the day fall kind of into this Belarusian university bubble, and they were locked into that company, that they were not connecting to Lithuanians, they were not connecting to the foreigners here. So learning the language of the country you reside in is a must thing if you want to integrate. Yes, it's tough when it comes to legal things and healthcare, but what we can do about that, maybe make it more accessible. I mean, make Lithuanian courses more accessible, because it seems like they're not really accessible now. It costs a lot, and there are not that many to pick from. But would you say that that's true, Sam? Because I've never heard this. Like, I would imagine that people would be like supporting Lithuanian language processes. I've
been targeted through adverts and stuff recently with these Lithuanian language courses. My phone's listening to me or something. And I did go through the motions, but because I'm registered as a freelancer here and paying taxes here and earning some money, those courses, like I can't get them for free, but it's great that they do that for like unemployed people. Secondly, it's like a certain level of people must sign up for a course for it to proceed. So yeah, I would agree with Pavel that there's not a lot of obvious kind of visibility around learning Lithuanian here. Yet it also becomes a requirement for particular levels of permits and things like this.
It's like it is a requirement, but if you want to actually achieve it, you need to look like where you're actually going to learn and have some money to pay for it. Is that correct?
Yes, or a certain level of people need to have signed up for the course for it to go ahead. So I've had other English-speaking friends who've been like, oh, maybe we can recruit enough people together so we can do it together, and it's those sorts of things. So they are available, but there's often kind of, you have to go through a process. But I also think there's just a level of people, like with friends, I've just been teased about how badly I pronounce Lithuanian as well. It's like there's just certain ways of the tongue moving that are quite challenging, actually. But yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I guess I would also say on the level of access, going back to maybe the sorts of circles and professions that we work in, things like, let's say, Lithuanian Council for Culture funding applications. That also is something that as a foreigner you can apply for. But of course there's a whole new language that you have to adapt for cultural projects. There is a coded language in there with buzzwords and all these things. And so unless you can work with a translator or a collaborator that is willing to translate your ideas, once again, you may have a great idea that they would love, but that once again becomes a barrier that you can only apply, I think, in Lithuanian. So not Ukrainian, not English, not maybe even Russian, but like basically common languages that exist here, and definitely within the cultural world, but it presents a kind of another barrier.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, Pavel, you were saying.
I just wanted to add one thing that I find the national language is very important right now, because what Belarusians going through is Russification of the culture. That was what was happening in the Ukraine as well. And right now, I understand that the language is how we can preserve our culture, because lots of Belarusians speak Russian, and many more started to speak Belarusian daily after the protests in 2020 and after the full-scale invasion. So that, the language is it's really simple as that it can help save your culture and identity.
Yeah. That is true. And it's almost like you want two different things. On one hand, you want to preserve Lithuanian identity, which is very connected with Lithuanian language. On the other hand, you want Lithuania, at least the city of Vilnius, to be more international, more welcoming, and it kind of clashes, these two ideas.
Yeah, I think it is the question of gamification of the language learning or something like that. Let's make it some Duolingo stuff out of mixing English and Lithuanian, because one of the problems of learning daily Lithuanian when I was learning it was that the language in the books is really different from language on the Facebook.
Oh, totally.
So, and you can't use Google Translate to understand what people write on Facebook. It's better now after 10 years, but back in the day it was like, those words that don't exist. So it was really hard, but I think it's possible now to somehow make this process of learning language more accessible or more gamified, or just use those not existing words.
Because it's the interest of like if we want to keep the Lithuanian language like alive, we need more speakers, and we don't have that many, right? Around like 3 million people in the world speak this language, and I understand that for some people who come here and they don't know if they're gonna like stay here longer, why would they bother learn the language that only like few million people in the world speak if they can survive in English just fine? So it is a question I've been thinking a lot about. Ira, what's in your situation? You mentioned that also learning Lithuanian is hard, and how do you see your connection with the language, and is that a barrier for you? Because there's also another thing happening, that at least some Lithuanians, they want to learn Ukrainian language to show support. That's a new thing. So how do you navigate this like different language environment?
Yeah, as we already mentioned, Lithuanian language is complicated. A lot of Ukrainians could go to courses for free to learn it, to integrate more. And it's all about patience. Some people use that opportunity, some not. And I have a lot of Ukrainians here, friends or people who I know, who really speak more or less fluently now, from what I understand. So would be nice to fix this problem if I'm going to stay in Lithuania, because I find that this like a main problem for me, because I don't want to speak Russian, and English sometimes is not enough.
Yeah. Also want to ask you about the general mood as we enter, like we're recording this conversation on February 1st, 2024. So this month there's going to be a second anniversary of full-scale invasion of Ukraine by Russia. And as the war continues, and we see that Ukrainians are fighting very hard, but the support from the West is not. It may be diminishing, especially after the elections in the U.S. And it seems that we don't know how the war will go, and that makes a city of Vilnius also somehow. We cannot be sure that nothing will happen here. I'm not saying that the army will go here, but something can happen. Especially like Lithuania as a country in this very delicate spot between like Kaliningrad on the left, Belarus on the right, and there's lots of analysis of like, if you want to show that NATO is like, if you want to attack NATO, basically border with Poland and Lithuania, what is called Suwalki corridor, that's like the perfect spot because of the geography. And we all came here because we didn't like, or we couldn't live the way we want to live in the cities that we grew up. Even myself as Lithuanians, I wanted to come to Vilnius to be in the city, and but we're not sure whether it's going to be safe here, like in the long run. Even though, like Ira, in your case, you went away from unsafety in Chernihiv, it's not sure that Vilnius is a safe place as well. So I wonder, how do you all deal with that? And is it possible to plan like long term here? Because I feel like this question is like just lingering, like how it would be like cool to do this project, but we don't know how the world will look in like 2025, and that kind of paralyzes you. I wonder, do you share that sentiment, and how do you cope with it? Sam, maybe we can start from you.
Yeah, so I guess coming back here around, I guess, 2.5 months after the full-scale invasion, with my family and friends in the West, of course, questions of like, are you safe? Is that okay? Feeling very worried, like I felt sure that we cannot let Russia frighten us, and that Vilnius is a resilient place, and Lithuania's support for Ukraine, and irrespective of language, my understanding of Lithuanian history and independence, I've taken an active position in learning about this and an interest in this. So I was like, I have to follow the same message as locals, and this is, you cannot let Russia scare you, and you have to use all the tools you can to welcome Ukrainians and do what you can. So for me, I came here with this sense, and again, even though it wouldn't have been economic, I tried to do what I could with my with the medium I have of radio to do appropriate fundraising and awareness raising, etc. So in general, that's what I try to live with now, and I continue to try and live with a sense of you can't let Russia frighten you, but I stay informed. So I try to go with that. And I would also say with all the work I'm doing now with building partnerships with countries in Central Europe and so on, I'm trying to build bridges between the regions and do work through media that connects the regions. And part of that naturally involves the narrative of the war, and to not let that die down.
Yeah, I think what you said, that Vilnius is a resilient place. I think I can totally agree. I think it's a good sentiment. And Pavel, how it is with you, having in mind the recent history of Belarus and the protests that really the mood was really high, like the hopes were really high, and now it feels like we don't know how that country will go. And it seems that for you, I don't know if you are even able to come back there safely, like maybe you are, but yeah, just do you feel safe in Vilnius, have in mind the Belarusian border?
Yeah, I can't come back to Belarus. Well, I can, but I just most likely end up in prison. The thing is that we were not expecting that much violence in 2020, and we were not expecting the war. So I would say that Belarusian society is highly traumatized society right now. And what psychologists say is that the first thing you can do is to take care of yourself. Is is safety instructions on the plane. That first you should put the mask on yourself and then put the mask on your kid, because if you are not fine, then you can't help others. So this is like how I can try to treat the current situation. And I feel personally this pressure of the war. So I try to stay in a clean mind and build some safety pillow and think about what I will do if to just be ready, because I wasn't ready to COVID, I wasn't ready to revolution in Belarus, and I wasn't ready to the war start. So maybe finally we should think about so many options and try to control at least our life and how we behave in this situation.
Can you elaborate on that? Like, what are the options in your mind?
What are the options? The first simple thing is that I don't have a driver license. This is what I need to fix as soon as possible, just to have the ability to be mobile. I mean, so very simple steps, or build a safety pillow.
Yeah.
because like I have no idea how things can turn out.
Yeah.
But coming back to the city, I would say I feel safe in Vilnius, but on the other hand, I don't feel safe kind of anywhere, because you know, when you're a person without an ability to go to your home country, let's say the recent case that most Belarusians who are abroad can't exchange their documents. And that's really problematic, because you can't go to Belarus, that you end up in prison. You can't legally stay anywhere, and you kind of not welcomed person who lost the country and losing identity. So I'm not sure. It's just complicated situation where you end up and you try to plan how to deal with that. But the problem with like documents is one of the major things that bothers all Belarusians.
Pavel, we did a story earlier how NARA readers, not podcast listeners, but readers could see you before that. You shared how there was an initiative to basically for people like you to almost remove a possibility to get Lithuanian citizenship because you have a Belarusian citizenship. Again, coming back to that Belarusians are seen as threat. Could you update on what's the situation now with and are you still like on that path?
Yeah, I'm still on the path of naturalization process, as I live in Lithuania for 15 years. And the situation is that Parliament didn't support those changes, and you still, as a Belarusian citizen, can go through naturalization procedure, having in mind that you passed language exam and constitution exam. So it's still ongoing.
Yeah.
But the political situation here is, I would say, like in Lithuania, is not stable, because I'm not sure the idea has changed too fast. I mean, the attitude towards Belarusian change fast. The support to Ukraine changes fast.
Yeah.
So this uncertainty is the thing that you should just encourage, maybe.
Yeah.
But I have no idea how to deal with that. Is that you can't be prepared to uncertainty, but you can stay calm about that. That there are things that you can't control, and you should just embrace it.
Yeah. Ira, how it is for you regarding the whole legal situation and like your ability to stay in Vilnius long term? Because what Pavel said, like, I think Ukrainian refugees, I don't know if you call yourself like that, but like there are some benefits, like for example, learning language, it's easier, right? Or there were other things, like even as I think like traveling by using public transport, there was an initiative where like free public transport for Ukrainians. And so yeah, having all this in mind, do you feel that this Lithuanian support for Ukrainians, do you, as someone who is Ukrainian, do you actually feel it? Does it make a difference? Does it give you more safety and security being here?
Yeah, of course, it's very blatant that Ukrainians can get this permanent residency, how it's called, for half of a year. And yeah, public transport, so yeah, a lot of benefits, and that makes me feel, as I mentioned, comfortable here. But honestly, I have the feeling that people will get soon tired kind of this war and things, and this will be over. I mean, this kind of support. Hope no military support, just these small things for refugees in the countries where they moved.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I wonder what solutions can we think about here. Have in mind this uncertainty that exists. We still want to do what we want to do. We want to do things that we are passionate about. How can we improve the whole ecosystem that exists in Vilnius? For example, Ira, as someone who is a DJ, who hosts a radio show, who also works as a teacher, how can this city suit you better? What is missing? And maybe we just don't know about those things, and they can be improved somehow.
I don't know what is missing. I wouldn't say something is missing here, that I don't feel like not enough support or something. From my side, what I do is, as a Ukrainian, I'm trying to remind people about the war. We are having this non-formal organization which is called Ukrainian Beat. We are organizing events and trying to show people that war is not over, and we are collecting money. That is our main purpose of that events and parties. Yeah, so I'm doing what I can do to remind people. But yeah, you don't know how it will go.
Ukrainian Beat.
Yeah, UB.
Nice. Can you tell more about the parties, the events you did?
Yeah, we are doing events where we want to collect money for Ukraine and also promote Ukrainian artists here in Lithuania. There are not many, but still we are doing this. Also, we invite Lithuanian artists to participate in our events. Yeah, so we are... we have done already maybe 6 events. Yeah.
Nice. And the founders are Ukrainians in Vilnius?
Yeah. It's one friend of mine, Nastya, me, and another friend. So three of us are Ukrainians.
Nice. Yeah. Pavel, Sam, in your cases, what could be, maybe there are some things that we as a community could think about to create, to somehow make this promise of Vilnius as, international safe city, to make it actually happen?
I guess what we can add is just to put more effort into connections and real life connections. I can give an example of what project exists in Poland, but maybe the link I'm missing here is that we may need to build connection between Belarusians and Ukrainians, because there is the people don't trust one another, and which is understandable in that case. But I try to believe in good in the people, that we can overcome that, and not everyone bad, and that Russia will fail, and Belarus will be free, and Ukraine will be rebuilt and free again. But what we build locally is to connect with one another more, as I said. And there is an interesting case in Poland, because the Belarusian community is very active, and way more Belarusians live in Poland than in Lithuania. And there is an event series called Varushniak. What they did last time was they built one-day festival consisting of Ukrainian artists, Belarusian artists, and Polish artists. So it was all mixed up together, and artists and audiences, and it worked really well. And I think those like people connection and links are important. So people won't read about Belarusians, like Lithuanians won't read about Belarusians in the news but would know them, and Ukrainians won't just read about Belarusians in the news and just they can call and ask, or vice versa. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, just to not have that dominating media appearance of another nationality and country and opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I kind of wanted to have you in this conversation, because, like, for example, we talk a lot about Ukrainians, but we rarely see Ukrainians in Lithuania. I don't know, just being visible. I mean, as individual people rather than just some kind of abstract idea. I think similar with Belarusians and people from other places as well. Sam, what are your thoughts of these? Like, what we could build that would be helpful for us at this moment as a community in the city?
Yeah, I really agree with Pavel, kind of forming these to kind of shake the narrative a bit that's repeated in the media, and instead, have these facilitated conversations or projects where different nationalities can coexist, but I guess there's a few things, like in terms of my role right now, I'm not from any of these places, and I acknowledge that when I'm not the person in media and radio projects that takes the foreground to tell narratives and stories that are happening. And for example, over the next year, I've built a partnership with a festival called Le Guess Who in the Netherlands, and through an initiative they have called Cosmos, they will now spotlight Vilnius as a city over the next year. And we haven't planned anything yet, but what I do know is that there'll be a 20-minute documentary film produced about the cultural scene here, spotlighting music, etc., and also with editorial content to really kind of tell the narrative here. And that is not, my role here really isn't to be in the foreground, but as a facilitator. And I think something that I've noticed is that Vilnius can stay very much in its bubble and exist and repeat in its ecosystem. But I think sometimes there can be a resistance to reach out internationally and to see how that's actually very beneficial to have that those sorts of cooperations. And I think in terms of just an everyday thing, and we've talked about it within the project Vilnius Circle, that to have a resource that's regularly updated, potentially in English as a working language, where people can go and understand where activities are happening, where they can have these face-to-face conversations. Because in my case, most of the time I'm operating online. I feel disconnected. I want to meet people. I want to get out of my circle, my bubble that I've ended up in, and try to build other partnerships. And that could just be through attending an event or a talk or whatever it is. But often I find out too late and it's already happened. And
there are some successful initiatives, like even like a Facebook group, Foreigners in Vilnius. It's it works, but again, it's like it's almost targeted at like people who like it's in the name, you're a foreigner, and like how can we just be Vilnietis, like Pavel, you said? How can we feel not foreigners here? Is that even possible? Anyway, like going to the end of our talk, like do you maybe want to ask each other, maybe from what we heard today,
someone has comments of, I'm taking a role as a facilitator of this talk, but maybe something is missing. I would like to hear.
I have a question to Ira about how is Ukrainian community, do you feel in this diasporic bubble in Vilnius or not? Because in Belarusian communities here, there are many of them. Someone does the movies, someone just the friends bubble, some cultural sector bubble. But it feels like Belarusian are in diaspora here, they're really locked inside. Does it feel the same for Ukrainian community?
I think it's too early to say, as Ukrainians have just recently came to Vilnius, to Lithuania. Talking about my surrounding and my artists, area, I wouldn't say I came here and I could join something. I didn't meet any people from music community I could join. I also don't know any other artists from other areas. So complicated to say. Feels like now I'm building this community around me. I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah, thanks.
Sam, any questions, any thoughts left unsaid?
I don't think so. I'm just quite convinced I went to one of your events at Svi Park, maybe, in the summertime. And there was records being sold, and I think you were DJing when I came by. But I think that kind of initiative and to keep going with that kind of thing, it might seem, I know those sorts of events, like if only 5 people turn up, it's just about the resilience of just keep doing them, because eventually 50 people will turn up. So it's kind of, I just think it's really important that those sorts of longer term initiatives just keep going. And but yeah, I don't think I have any questions.
Yeah, I feel like it's it's more raising questions rather than having answers, because it's it's a new reality. It feels like a new reality, and we try to navigate it. So I'm really happy for you to sharing your thoughts, and for our listeners, again, this is more of kind of raising those questions in your mind as well. Like, how can we improve our community ties in this city? And if you're listening in a different city, maybe it can be applied as well. Sam, Pavel, Ira, thank you so much for being here today, and good luck continuing your important work.
That is our show today. Thank you for listening. In this panel discussion, you heard voices from Samantha Lippett, Pavel Kirpikau, Ira Hoisa, and me, Karolis Vyšniauskas. This episode is a collaboration between the Vilnius Circle Initiative and NARA, a space for responsible journalism in Vilnius. This episode is also a part of the Perspectives Media Initiative, uniting journalists in Central Eastern Europe. If you want to support NARA work, please do that at contribute.com/NARA. Once again, contribute.com/NARA. This episode is edited by Adomas Zube. The music that you're hearing is produced by Ira Hoisa. The photos of the episode are taken by Denis Vies. See them at nara.lt and NARA's Instagram. Our intern for the episode is Ostea Buraite. My name is Karolis Vyšniauskas. See you next time.